Hi, my dear students. I'm Dr. Jeetu. I'll be covering the third chapter, dental pulse. We'll be going according to pulse, okay? That is defense mechanisms of gingiva. When any pathogen or any microbe wants to invade the oral cavity, what is the first mode of defense? It is epithelium. So, epithelium is the first line of defense against external agents. After the outer oral epithelium, what we have? We have the sulcular epithelium where we have the GCF. GCF is also one of the defense mechanisms. After that, we have the junctional epithelium. Junctional epithelium is also very important in providing defense against external agents. So here junctional epithelium acts as a physical barrier first of all, and also it has a high turnover. High turnover means whenever any microbe invades the junctional epithelium, these cells will be shed off by the junctional epithelium as a result of its high turnover rate and hence eliminating the pathogen. And one more feature is it possesses lysosomes, and lysosomes are very important in containing many enzymes which will be effective against pathogens or microbes. Also, phagocytosis of bacteria and release of cytokines are functions of the epithelial cells. Release of cytokines, it includes predominantly interleukins 1, 6, 8 and TNF alpha. They are pro-inflammatory. Pro-inflammatory means they triggers the inflammatory process. So, interleukins 1, 6, 8 and TNF alpha. These things are secreted. And when we looked into the pro-inflammatory cytokines, we should also know about anti-inflammatory cytokines. They are interleukins 4, 10 and 13 predominantly. So pro-inflammatory are 1, 6, 8 and TNF alpha. Anti-inflammatory are 4, 10 and 13. Next one is sulcular fluid. Brill is an author who considered sulcular fluid as a transudate, whereas GCF is also considered as an inflammatory exudate. So what is the difference? Transudate means it is a filtrate of blood and it is forming because of some mechanical reasons like osmosis or things like that, whereas exudate means there is a damage to the endothelium, therefore the fluid as a whole is expressed almost. So transudate contains less amount of proteins, cells, fibrinogen, etc., whereas exudate contains more amount of all these. So if you get a question, GCF is a transudate or a exudate, you should go for inflammatory exudate, because in true sense GCF is a transudate, okay, but during inflammatory conditions it becomes an exudate and it becomes easily expressible, or whenever we are collecting GCF, we are collecting a exudate. When it is in a transudate form and it is existing inside the sulcus, it is barely collectible. And that is why we give more weightage to the answer inflammatory exudate. That is, whenever we are collecting some GCF or when the GCF becomes collectible, it is more likely a exudate. Understood the difference? Now about collection of the sulcular fluid, we have 4 techniques. One is absorbing paper strips. These will be placed near the sulcus. If we insert it inside the sulcus, it becomes intrasulcular method given by Brill, or if we are holding it only at the entrance of the sulcus, it is called the extrasulcular method given by Low and Holm Pedersen. After absorbing paper strips, we have pre-weighted twisted threads. We put that into the sulcus. After it absorbs some amount of GCF, we weigh them again so that we can get the amount of GCF collected. Then we have micropipettes. After micropipettes, we have crevicular washings. Crevicular washings are also used, wherein we used the washed out fluid from the gingival sulcus. An important MCQ is permeability of junctional epithelium and sulcular epithelium. It is permeable to substances with a molecular weight of up to 1000 kD or up to 1000 kilodalton. It will allow the movement. Above 1000 kilodalton, it is not permeable. Again, the intercellular movement of molecules and ions happens between the intercellular spaces. So it is not passing through the cells. Whatever material is passing, it is passing through the space between two cells. Now, how to determine the amount collected? Amount collected, one is ninhydrin staining, and second one is electronic method. It is for measuring the fluid collected on a perio paper or a blotter, and then we calculate using an electronic transducer or periotron. Coming to composition of GCF, We have proteins, metabolites, antibodies, antigens, and enzymes of several specificities. We have cellular elements and electrolytes. Yes, the cellular elements found in GCF are bacterial cells, desquamated epithelial cells, and leukocytes like neutrophils, lymphocytes, macrophages, or monocytes. And about the electrolytes, there is a positive correlation of calcium and sodium concentration, with sodium-potassium ratio will be seen more in the inflammatory conditions. The organic compounds found in GCF include glucose, hexosamine, and hexuronic acid. And this is an important MCQ. I have seen this multiple times. Glucose concentration of GCF. Glucose concentration in GCF is 3 to 4 times greater than that in serum. You should connect that G's. Glucose in GCF is greater, okay, than in serum. It is 3 to 4 times greater than that in serum. About protein content, total protein content is less than that of serum. Glucose is greater, but protein is less. Now, after the organic compounds, metabolic and bacterial compounds include lactic acid, urea, hydroxyproline, endotoxins, cytotoxic substances, hydrogen sulfide, antibacterial factors. These are the metabolic factors, usually the metabolic base products, lactic acid, urea, hydrogen sulfide, and all that. Another important question is antibiotics that appear in GCF. If a person is taking an antibiotic and it appears in GCF, it is most likely to be tetracycline or metronidazole. Okay, so tetracycline and metronidazole both are antibiotics that appear in GCF, right? Now we'll see about certain molecules found in GCF and the tests used to identify them. First one is fluorometric test. Fluorometric test detects metalloproteinases. You have heard about MMPs, right? Matrix metalloproteinases. So they can be detected by fluorometric test. Next is enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay or ELISA. So connect that E and E. ELISA detects enzyme levels and interleukin 1 beta. Along with the enzymes, you should also remember interleukin 1 beta. Next is radioimmunoassays. Radioimmunoassays can detect COX derivatives and procollagen 3. Procollagen 3 and COX derivatives are detected by radioimmunoassay. Next is HPLC or high pressure liquid chromatography. It detects molecules like timidazole. And finally, immunodot test, direct and indirect immunodot test will detect acute phase proteins. I have seen this as match the following. So have an idea about this. Fluorometry detects metalloproteinases, ELISA detects enzymes and interleukin 1 beta, radioimmunoassay detect cyclooxygenase and procollagen 3. HPLC detects timidazole, direct and indirect immunodot test detects acute phase proteins. Coming to amount of GCF is not a constant. In some conditions, there is greater production of GCF, especially when inflammation is present, there is greater production of GCF, and the amount is proportional to the severity of inflammation, more when more of inflammation is present. And there are certain conditions which will increase the production of GCF. One is mastication of coarse food because it stimulates the periodontal ligament. 2 is toothbrushing and gingival massage also increases the amount of GCF. Then conditions like ovulation, pregnancy and hormonal contraceptives, the female hormonal variations take place in these conditions. Then due to use of prosthetic appliances and also in smokers, the amount of GCF will be high. So mastication of coarse food, toothbrushing and gingival massage, ovulation, pregnancy and hormonal contraceptive usage, prosthetic appliances and smoking. Now we know there is a variation in the amount of GCF. There is also a variation in the amount with time. So there is a gradual increase in the amount of GCF from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. the morning hours, and after 10 p.m. it decreases. Means in the night it decreases. Increase in GCF production also occurs during healing after a periodontal surgery. During the healing phase after periodontal surgery, there is increase in the GCF production. And one option that can confuse you is trauma from occlusion. GCF production is not increased by trauma from occlusion. Keep a note, it is not increased by trauma from occlusion. After epithelium, GCF was our second defense mechanism. Now the third one is leukocyte. So we have to learn about the differential leukocyte count. In the differential WBC count is 91.2% to 91.5% of neutrophils and remaining 8.5 to 8.8% mononuclear cells. Mononuclear cells can be 58% of B lymphocytes. I usually connect that 8 and B because they look almost similar. 58% of B lymphocytes, 24% of T lymphocytes, okay, and 18% of mononuclear phagocytes are present. An important question is what happens to leukocytes and GCF? The ratio of T lymphocytes to B lymphocytes is reversed in GCF. Usually T to B is 3:1. Okay. T and 3 ka T you should connect. So T to B is 3:1 in blood. It is reversed in GCF. So T is to B is 1:3 in GCF. Clear about that? So why neutrophil is very important in defense mechanism? Because it possesses neutrophilic granules. Basically there are 3 types of granules, but 2 are very important, primary and secondary. Primary is also known as azurophilic granules. Secondary is also known as specific granule. It is called primary because it is primarily present in all the granulocytes. Which are the granulocytes? We should remember the acronym NEB, neutrophil, eosinophil and basophil, and it stains with azure dye, therefore it is known as azurophilic granules. Azurophilic granules possesses which all enzymes? It is very important. Myeloperoxidase, the enzyme which is often highlighted in microbial killing, is present in the primary granule. It is asked, myeloperoxidase is in which granule? It is primary granule. Also, lysozyme, elastase, cathepsins, defensins are primary granules, means present in all the granulocytes. Secondary are more specific to neutrophils, therefore they are known as secondary or specific granules, and they are neutrophil specific lysozymes, collagenases and lactoferrins. Lactoferrin is also often asked in MCQs. It is which granules? It is present in secondary granules. So myeloperoxidase is present in primary granule and lactoferrin is present in secondary granule. Next defense mechanism is saliva. Saliva has a variety of functions. In this particular tabular column, it is taken from Karansa. There are 6 functions of saliva, and the salivary component which contributes to this and the probable mechanism is given. It is simple. We know there is lubricatory function and it is by glycoproteins and mucoids, and the mechanism is it coats the oral cavity similar to the gastric mucin coating the gastric mucosa. Next is physical protection, which is again due to glycoproteins and mucoids. Then we have a cleansing action, which is due to the physical flow of saliva. This will clear the debris and the bacteria. Buffering action is due to bicarbonates and phosphates. It has been asked in MCQs. Buffering action of saliva is due to bicarbonates and phosphates. So if bicarbonate and phosphate is present in option, go for bicarbonate. It is predominantly due to bicarbonate. If both are there, go for A and B or A and C. Okay. And what is the mechanism of action? It is having an antacid action. Then next function is tooth integrity maintenance. The integrity of the tooth is maintained by minerals, which is due to maturation and remineralization, and the glycoprotein pellicle, which offers a mechanical protection. So tooth integrity maintenance is contributed by saliva due to the mineral deposition as well as pellicle formation. And finally, we have antibacterial action, and the components which contribute to this are immunoglobulin A. We always say immunoglobulin A is present in saliva and G is present in GCF. Okay, this immunoglobulin controls the bacterial colonization. Second one is lysozyme, which breaks the bacterial cell wall. We also have lactoperoxidase, which oxidizes the susceptible bacteria. So that's all about saliva. In saliva, we have inorganic factors as well as organic factors. What are the inorganic factors? We have a variety of ions and gases, bicarbonates, elements like sodium, potassium, phosphates, calcium, fluoride, ammonium and carbon dioxide constitute the inorganic factors in saliva. Organic factors include the antibacterial substances like lysozyme, lactoferrin, myeloperoxidase, defensins, peptides, agglutinins, and namely glycoproteins, mucins, beta-2 macroglobulins, fibronectins, and we also have antibodies, IgA specifically in saliva. IgG is present in GCF. This tabular column is also taken from Karansa. This depicts which antibacterial factor specifically acts against which microorganism. So, lysozyme acts against Veillonella and AA, Actinomycetum comitans. What actinomycetum comitans? It was Actinobacillus actinomycetum comitans. Now it is aggregative bacter Actinomycetum comitans. Lactoperoxidase thiocyanate system active against Lactobacillus, lacto-lacto you should connect, and also against the Streptococcus species. Lactoferrin also kills Actinobacillus. Myeloperoxidase also kills Actinobacillus. So against Actinobacillus we have lysozyme, lactoferrin and myeloperoxidase. Lysozyme also kills Veillonella. Lactoperoxidase thiocyanate system kills Lactobacillus and Streptococcus. N number of proteases are present in saliva. All of these ends with ase: hyaluronidase, lipase, beta-glucuronidase, chondroitin sulfatase, aspartate aminotransferase, alkaline phosphatase, amino acid decarboxylase, catalase, peroxidase, collagenase. So all of these will lyse the peptide bonds. So we need some anti-protease also to neutralize this. Otherwise, there will be an uncontrolled proteolytic action. So, to combat these anti-proteases like cathepsins and anti-leucoproteases, which is an inhibitor of elastase, are present in saliva. Another anti-protease is TIMP, or tissue inhibitor of metalloprotease. This inhibits the activity of collagenases or MMPs. So, now we'll have an idea about MMPs or matrix metalloproteinases. There are 5 groups of MMPs and each are under specific headings. The first group is collagenases. Collagenases 1, 2 and 3 are there. This corresponds to MMPs 1, 8 and 13. So collagenase 1 is MMP 1, collagenase 2 is MMP 8 and collagenase 3 is MMP 13. Clear? Similarly, we have gelatinases. Gelatinase A and gelatinase B is there. Gelatinase A is MMP2 and gelatinase B is MMP9. Then we have stromalysin group, which includes MMPs 3, 10 and 11. Also we have MMPs 7 and 26, which makes the matrylysine group. And finally membrane type MMPs, which includes 14, 15, 16, 17 and 24, 25. Okay. So MMPs 1, 8, 13 are collagenases, MMPs 2 and 9 are gelatinases, MMPs 3, 10, 11 are stromalysins, MMPs 7 and 26 are matrylysins, and 14, 15, 16, 17, 24, 25 are membrane type matrix metalloproteinases. Now some important MCQs which I happen to see. The most important buffer system is the bicarbonate carbonic acid system. Already we have seen this. Next one is coagulation factors found in saliva. They are 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Coagulation factors 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are found in saliva. Another question is orogranulocyte. The live neutrophils present in saliva are known as orogranulocytes. We know neutrophils are granulocytes. So the living neutrophils which is found in saliva is known as orogranulocyte. Now vitamins present in saliva. Vitamins B, C and K are found in saliva. Another question is, what is von Ebner gland protein? We know von Ebner gland is a posterior lingual serous gland. What is von Ebner gland protein? It is an inhibitor of cysteine proteinase and it acts as an antiviral agent. We also have SLPI or secretory leukocyte protease inhibitor. We are familiar with this term. This is considered as the factor which is responsible for inhibiting HIV virus spread in saliva. So it is an inhibitor of serine proteinase. Okay, von Ebner gland protein was an inhibitor of cysteine proteinase. SLPA is an inhibitor of serine proteinase, and SLPA can act both as an antimicrobial and antiviral. We learned so many things about saliva, and finally coming to the condition xerostomia, which is the reduced salivary flow. So the features are flow rate. While in a healthy person it is 1 to 2 milliliters, in xerostomia it is less than 0.1 milligram per milliliter. And while we have a normal sensation in our mouth, xerostomia patients will sense dry mouth. They always have dry mouth. And the consistency of texture of normal saliva is resilient and lubricated. Xerostomic patients will have erythematous and sticky in consistency. Their saliva will be. Okay. So note that value again. In health it is 1 to 2 milliliters. In xerostomia it is less than 0.1 milligram per milliliter. So that's all. Defense mechanism is a relatively small chapter. Please go through the slides again and again. If you have any doubts, feel free to contact me. Thank you.